Trump versus women. This is Saturday the 12th, post-election week, and this is a video about some of the growing concerns in inner city and communities based on the election of Donald Trump. And this article is particularly coming from the Washington Post. It is entitled, "What Does President Trump Mean for Feminists? Getting to Work Means Plowing Forward." And this article was written by a journalist and a lawyer named Jill Filipovic. And so I'm going to read to the best of my ability of what she has written. "I am a feminist writer. I am inundated with sexist harassment and political ugliness more or less constantly. I know that the history of women's progress in the U.S. has been uneven and often marked with big setbacks, just as we were on the precipice of real change. This, though, I did not predict. I am writing from my current and I assumed temporary home in Nairobi. But now I wonder whether the U.S., this United States, the one that just elected Donald Trump, is one to which I want to return. That sounds melodramatic, but what a clear statement of what so many of my countrymen and the people who put Trump in power are mostly men value. White male supremacy above all, especially over female ambition, intelligence, and basic competence. Still abandoning the playing field is not an option. It's hard to think about tomorrow when today is so crushingly awful. Take a day, hug your kids, drink your wine, punch your pillow, go for a run, then let's get to work. For feminists, getting to work means plowing forward, not second-guessing our mission. This is a big setback, a phenomenal, shocking setback. It is not the first, and it will not be the last. The only way to change is to change. And when our project is so immense, changing no less than the foundation of our society, our very ideals of what it means to be male and female, it will take a very long time to complete. We know now what so many Americans think of successful, ambitious, intelligent women. They think we are a threat." And I've been saying this before, so this is outside of the article. I have done other videos, and I felt like that was the whole premise behind this rant and rave and these slew of videos on social media against women, against black women, against white women, against feminists, against black feminism, is that they think that we are a threat. So again, I'm going back to the article. "They will choose almost anything to avoid putting us in charge. We fix this with more feminism, not less. And given who Americans just elected, we have to focus first on the women a Trump presidency will make most vulnerable. Immigrant women, women of color, lesbian women, transgender women, women seeking abortions, women seeking asylum, women seeking protection from men. If there was ever a time to donate your local domestic violence to a domestic violence shelter, your local abortion fund, Black Lives Matter, your local group helping refugees apply for legal status, your local nonprofit group that shelters and assists undocumented immigrants, this is the time. This is it. If there was ever a time to refuse to cower in the face of defeat, to speak louder, even in our female voices, this is it. Because what Trump wants us to do is to sit down and just shut up. We should pay attention to the many men whose lives are about to get significantly worse under a Trump presidency. Immigrant men, gay men, black men at risk for more police violence, of course. men who rely on Affordable Care Act for their health insurance, men who reject traditional masculinity, and even the men and women who voted Trump to victory. White people who traded racial resentment for the kind of progressive change that would have improved their lives too. They surely think feminism has nothing to offer them compared with a promise to restore them to their former position of unearned power. They are about to see how wrong they are. For the many women who were surprised by this result, myself included, we need to take a good look around and quit excusing bad behavior where we see it. There's a huge gender gap in this election, the widest since 1976. Early numbers point to women favoring Clinton by 12 points and men favoring Trump by the same margin. Clinton's strength with women was mostly due to women of color backing her, where Trump's support was overwhelmingly white. Clinton was incredibly diverse, and she won majorities of African Americans, Asians, and Hispanics. Clinton's base looks like America's future, while Trump's looks like the white, or waning, in other words, the waning white face of American power. It doesn't matter. Old American or America won. And the new America is scared. Nearly 70% of black voters say that they're afraid of a Trump presidency. But we don't live in different worlds. Many of the same women who voted for Clinton live with, work with, date, and befriended men who voted for Trump. Women have always paired off with misogynist men and have always excused bad male behavior, defending sexist men as simply old school, shrugging off sexual assaults as boys will be boys, concluding that because a man loves them, he must not hate women enough. Misogyny isn't the fault of women, and it is not up to women to force men to treat us like a human being. But it is incumbent upon us to not buoy bigotry. A majority of white women voted for Trump, disproportionately those who are older, religious, and without college degrees. In other words, women who may be more steeped in, accustomed to, dependent on a male authority. For these women, it seemed race trumped gender, and a white supremacy was more important than broader freedoms for women, freedoms for women. While this is disappointing, it is also perhaps to be expected. White women in many of these states that supported Trump have historically been supporters of segregation and racism just as surely as their husbands, and have also typically opposed many of the laws that would improve conditions for all American women. And make no mistake about this, a vote for Trump is a vote against women. He has bragged on videos about committing sexual assault, and nearly a dozen women have accused him of doing exactly what he claimed, though he has denied all the allegations. He evaluates women not on their intelligence or good character, but on the physical attribute scale of 1 to 10. Women he doesn't like are pigs and dogs, and he has said women who have abortions should face legal punishment. And he is sure to appoint Supreme Court justices who would dismantle abortion rights if given the opportunity. He has few women on his short list of appointments for cabinet positions or the Supreme Court. Women know why Trump accusers stayed silent for so long. End quote. Women should refuse to tolerate men who would vote so clearly and aggressively against our interest, against the ideals that we're equal citizens, that we're human beings. Women and feminists cannot do this job alone. Many millions of American men cast their votes for Clinton in this election, and many millions of American men are just as heartbroken as I am. Women have been carrying the heavy weight of fighting sexism for a long time, but what this election makes clear is that little changes if men don't change. This is where we need men to step in and work on one another. Even the brightest, best qualified woman can't win the white male vote. Feminist minded men need to convince other men that more women in power and more gender egalitarian society is in everyone's interest. With a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and Trump in the White House, a lot could get ugly in the next 4 years. Supreme Court appointments will probably mean the end of the safe and legal abortion access. The border with Mexico could become an even more dangerous and deadly place for people trying to cross it, and the rest of the country may grow even more hostile. Anecdotally, it seemed that sexist abuse was worse online and off during this election. I saw it for myself on social media and heard story after story of female friends being grabbed or called misogynist slurs from wearing pro Clinton t shirts or simply being at an election related events, often in tandem with the declaration from the grabber that Trump would win. These attacks, large and small, may very well ramp up now that Trump has normalized it and voters have supported him. This election is a huge blow, and it's women and Trump's favorite minority targets, Muslims, Latinos, African Americans, who are going to suffer first. If you weren't a feminist before, or if you weren't ambivalent or a quiet supporter of women's rights and the rights of minorities, now's the time to get loud. Because as much as we need you before, we need you now more than ever. And there's a slew of comments. Some are probably more backing the article, and others are probably very, very nasty comments. And the next article I was going to read is 7 terrifying changes that women can expect to face under President Trump. And this is by a Maggie Maloney, and this was put out November 11, 2016. Well, it happened. Donald Trump is our next president, and now that the votes have been tallied in, the concession speech delivered, and the tears have been cried, #truth. It's time to think about what a Trump presidency would look like for us nasty women. Here are all the changes Donald Trump's administration could enact that may affect women's rights. Number 1 is one of the biggest issues. Roe v. Wade could be overturned. Yes, abortion is somehow still on the table for men politicians to discuss. Back in September, Trump sent a letter to pro-life leaders in America to join his pro-life coalition, where he outlined a number of steps he would take to advance the rights of unborn children and their mothers when elected president. A key component of Trump's plan is to overturn Roe v. Wade, which has protected abortion rights since 1973. Trump's plans include nominating a pro-life justices of Supreme Court, starting with a nominee to replace Antonin Scalia, who died in February. He was with SCOTUS, of course. According to the Washington Post, Trump's nominee will be a staunch conservative and will be like Scalia in seeking to overturn Roe v. Wade. Or the Roe. And that is just the beginning. Trump may be able to appoint other Supreme Court justices during his presidency. The Washington Post reports that the average age at which Supreme Court justices retire is 78.7. There are 3 justices who are past and nearly past that point. And so we know one is Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is 83, Anthony Kennedy, who is 80, Stephen Breyer, who is turned 78 in August, and the more conservatives on the court, they're more likely it is that Roe versus Wade could be overturned. So let's not forget our next Vice President, Mike Pence. Pence's record is firmly pro-life, and he once said on the record, "I long for the day that Roe versus Wade is sent to the ash heap of history, a passionate plea for the human without ovaries." From a human without ovaries. In other words, a passionate male plea from a human without ovaries. Okay, now I'm going to read number 2, and then I'm going to go into more of what, what other fears are going on out there, and I'll probably jot through some other issues. Number 2 is, even if Roe versus Wade remains, abortion laws will change for the worse. In the same letter to pro-life leaders, Trump said that he will be signing into law the Pain-Capable Unborn Child Protection Act, which would end painful late-term abortion nationwide. The bill, which bans most abortions after 20 weeks, was passed by the House in 2015 and later blocked in the Senate. Trump is dedicated to signing a bill and will face no opposition with the Republican-controlled Senate and House. In addition, Trump has said he will make the Hyde Amendment permanent when he becomes president. The Hyde Amendment, which was first passed by Congress in 1976, withholds certain federal funding from being used for abortions. It's not currently a permanent law, but it's extended annually in spending bills, and Trump's plan is to make it permanent. USA Today reports none of comes at a huge surprise, given that Trump once said women deserve some form of punishment for receiving abortion. Okay, Planned Parenthood might be straight up defunded, so that's an issue. I'm just going to read over some of the things that they have listed. Paid maternity leave might be here finally, but it may exclude single mothers. Trump has no policies to ensure wage equality. That's another issue. Trump has a problem with sexual misconduct. That was another issue that came up. And number 7, the hardest glass ceiling remains. No, this isn't change under a Trump presidency, but it's a fact nonetheless. Take a moment to realize that women have further to go in this country, and then devise a way to take down the patriarchy. Because Beyonce says women run the world, and Beyonce is never wrong. So that's from Marie Claire. Okay, so I'm going to go over another article, but I'm not going to read the article to its entirety. I'm just going to read some of the things that are listed that were issues. And I believe there are 11 things, so I probably went over some of those 11 things in the other previous article, but this article is by Lizzie Hill. It says 11 things feminists should brace for or themselves for now that Donald Trump has won. So I'm just gonna, number 1 was lack of concern for victims of sexual assault. Number 2, anti-abortion stance, and we read over that. Number 3, glorifying the mistreatment of women. Number 4, the belief that having an attractive wife will win public opinion. Number 5, a culture of sexism cultivated by Trump. And number 6, okay, I'm going to go through that one. Number 6, let's see, trying to get to number 6 here. And I guess it moved me to another article. You know, sometimes when you're online, it moves you to different articles. And number 6 was valuing women based on their appearance. Number 7 was or is the belief that he has a right to express his sexist views. Number 8, the sexiest bullying of women who disagree with the sexiest bullying of women who disagree with him. Number 9, his macho bragging. Number 10, his treatment of breastfeeding mothers. There was an issue with that as well, so maybe I can just briefly read that one. A lawyer, Elizabeth Beck, had a nasty Trump experience. Beck tells CNN that in 2011, Trump had an absolute meltdown when she said she needed to take a break to pump breast milk during a deposition. He got up, his face got red, and he shook his finger at me and he screamed, you're disgusting, and he ran out of there," Beck recounted. In typical Trump style, rather than apologizing for his behavior, he took to Twitter to criticize Beck even more. So I'm going to read a Trump tweet. Okay. A Trump tweet was CNN politics. Lawyer Elizabeth Beck did a terrible job against me. She lost, and I even got legal fees. I love beating her. She was easy. Okay, so he must have deleted some of what he said, because I believe there might have been more to it. Okay, so I'll just jump down. It had something to do with her breastfeeding, and he found it that it was disgusting, and so he criticized her for it. Okay, number 11. Another worry is his belief that women get jobs because they're attractive. Or a rant, in other words, of fear that his thing is looking at the outward appearance of women and not what they're valued as just who they are as a person. Okay, so I believe that's all of it. I think she had 11. Yeah, and that might have been the last of them. I believe that, yeah, that was published February. Let me see, this is something else. No, that was another article. There was also that article about Rosie O'Donnell's response to Donald Trump. So that article was in February, But anyway, so that is the whole article. I believe it was, a total of 11 issues. And so now I'm going to move away from this. Now, you probably see these two women. This is Diamond and Silk is their stage name. Or their, I said stage name. They sound like stripper names, but they supported Donald Trump. They were video bloggers, and they probably still are. And so they supported Trump. They, as in these two women, supported Trump heavily during the campaign trail. And this is David Chappelle, and you can see what he is about. He's a comedian in the black community. And so I thought these were pretty important because, being in the black community or part of the black community, I felt that these things should be brought out. And if I go back on the two women, who was it, Diamond and Silk, I believe I had their names, their original names, but I don't know if I can get it now. Okay, I think it's Lynette Hardaway and Rochelle Richardson, better known as their stage names. I was right, Diamond and Silk. They're an American duo, mainly active in video blogging on YouTube. They're YouTube personalities. So they campaigned for Donald Trump, or in other words, they rooted him on to try to get Donald Trump out of votes out of the black community from people who were, historically vote Democratic. They were encouraging black voters to vote, switch their party from Democrat to Republican. And here, you notice I used the clip from a movie called American Pimp, and there's been a lot of swirling issues around Donald Trump and how he views women. And I just read off some of those issues, and it is really sad because we already have a lot of issues in America over domestic abuse, and it seemed like as soon as that was coming to the forefront, there were a lot of things coming up about domestic abuse and how women are treated. A wave of feminism, the fourth wave, I believe, would be rightfully so, that it's going to create a climate of divide, social divide or gender divide between male and females in terms of political issues. And so these were really hot button topics. And so having, that whole thing by electing a woman as president, you have a lot of egos, particularly a lot of male egos. And I'm sure you've seen some of the other clips that I have showing men who just don't want to see a woman lead the country. They feel like it's a male's job. They don't want to see a woman in particular roles. They have a problem with it. So they say if she wins, then we win. This right here would signify, women who are more progressive, and they're more about Hillary. They were more for Hillary Clinton. They were more for women progression of women's rights and Planned Parenthood, women's being pro, instead of like pro-life, they were pro-choice. And women's bodies, the right to choose. And there are just some people that are really, really traditionally rooted in putting women in specific boxes. And so there's people that believe that women should not be heard, they should just only be seen, and some don't even want them to be seen. As we know, with some religions are very strict on that you keep your head and your body covered. And so a lot of this is coming from misogynistic views. Women are naturally unfit for political office. Both of the natural order, the facts show that political being par excellence is male, and the scripture shows that women has always been the helper of a man who thinks and does, but nothing more. And so a lot of this is coming from traditional Old Testament misogyny that is in the Bible, and they even use the Bible to use that as a course of action as to why they feel that women should be silent. They shouldn't be heard. They shouldn't voice any opinions. They're other than, they're underneath a man, and that women are more for procreation, to help in procreation, and to just really be in the kitchen and be like a servant, and the treatment is really poor. So particularly in the black community, you have males who feel like they can just go out, sleep with whoever they want to sleep with, do whatever they want to do. There are certain groups that believe this, certain individuals. They can walk around with their pants sagging, but they want to come home to this woman who will listen to anything they say and take their abuse. And the man can virtually do and say whatever he wants to her, even attack her, even beat her up, even beat up the kids, even say what goes, if it by any means necessary, even if it means violence, verbal, emotional, abusive, all types of attacks and violence. And so some people grew up in households like this, where they even use the Bible as a means of making the woman shut up. We need to put her in her place. Women have a place, males have a place. Men are supposed to be the head of the home. They're supposed to talk. Women are supposed to shut up. If they don't, you have to check your woman, And I don't know if anybody has heard men say this, oh, check your woman, man. Make her be quiet. In other words, be violent and shut her up by any means necessary. And so these are the issues coming out around domestic abuse, violence towards women and in relationships in particular. And you get women who have come from backgrounds also where they've seen their mothers being abused, and they think that it's normal. They're used to it, and they grow up with the same type of atmosphere. And culturally, in some countries, it's accepted to be abusive and punitive to women. And so these issues are real strong, hot button topics, real emotional topics. Some kids are even witnessing their parents engaged in these physical violent acts with one another. And the woman will regard it as, oh, he's just a man. He's just upset because he lost his job. He's just being a man. He didn't really mean it. He loves me. He loves the kids. But the kids then grow up. Male, female child grows up to then carry on the cycle of domestic abuse. And so it goes on. It's a vicious cycle that never ends. And so also all of the political rights, all of the political things that I just talked about in some of those articles, it's true. You even have black women who they don't want to be alone. They don't want to be by themselves. So even if it means being with an abusive male or mate, they'd rather be in an abusive relationship than to wait until they're in a more healthier relationship, because they may be in an environment where they're around men who talk to other men who are abusive, and that man, even if he's not as abusive as his friends, he's getting encouraged by those men. And so they say, you need to check your woman, man. You need to check her, make her be quiet. Do you let her wear the pants in the house? So these are the relationships that some of these women are in. And then if they're not involved in those relationships, they get with other men who maybe come from another nationality or background, who also they have their own take on how to treat women. And it may not all necessarily be safe. It may not be healthy as well. It's just a different nationality doing this. But the consensus says that most women will, if they're in a cohabitative relationship and they're used to abuse, and the cycle then transfers on to the kids. And so this is what we're faced with in the black community and all other communities. So since these issues of abuse have come out, now you have this surge of voting for Trump. What does it say about women's futures? We really should give some thought to it.